So I am just like up to my ears in whips right now. So I thought I would make a little video basically forcing myself to finish my different works in progress so I can like move on to other things. We have like crash landed into spring. Today is probably the last like coolish day. I'm getting one last wear out of my zipper sweater and it's going to start getting really warm soon, which is honestly a nice change of pace. It has been a very cold winter, but I've got a lot of stuff on the needles and a lot of like summer, spring kind of knits that I want to start casting on. So I need to start casting off. This video is going to be filmed in like lots of different parts as I like work on these different projects and hopefully have some nice conclusion with finished things by the end of the video. But I thought I would start with the projects that I have on the go right now and a little talk about what I would like to start casting on next. Like, why do I want to start finishing these? So like I said, this spring has been a real whirlwind of weather change. Today is like the last cool-ish day at like 40-ish degrees. And then all of a sudden in the next few days, we're going to start getting into the 80s. And then next week, it's supposed to be in the 90s, which is just really warm for April. We're all over the place. And I have like a lot of wintry kind of things going on right now. So I kind of got to clean those up because I really want to cast on a spring cardigan. Really hope that I can finish it in enough time to be able to wear it this spring before it gets too hot. But I'm really in need of like a lightweight, easy on, easy off cardigan that I can layer when it's still cool in the mornings and in the evenings, but then during the day I don't have to worry about it because it's nice and warm. So that is the main goal. I want to be able to finally get my spring cardigan onto the needles, but before I can do that, I really have to get some of this cleaned up. So I thought I would walk you through the whips that I have on the go right now. I haven't shown this at all in a video so far. This is kind of a little mini Sophie shawl. It's one I am knitting just kind of like a little double wrap necktie. So it's basically the Sophie shawl pattern, except for I'm doing far longer in between the increases and decreases to make a nice, really long, skinny scarf that I can wrap around all the way once and again and tie in the front, which I thought would be super cute. I guess for next winter, because I'm sure by the time that I actually finish this, it's going to be too warm to wear, but I have a very small amount of this left and we're decreasing now, so it's just going to get smaller and smaller. I might actually be able to finish this tonight. I cannot for the life of me remember what the name of this yarn is, but this is just a little 50-gram skein. I think it's a sport weight or a DK weight yarn. And I'm almost done with it and I have plenty to go. So I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get all of this done with just 50 grams, which is really nice, but I will put the name of the yarn on the screen so you can see what it is. So this is going to be an easy one to get on and off of the needles. And I suppose the next easiest is going to be my Totally Rad Socks by Summer Lee. So if you watched my last video, I had a little bit of a cast on party, which was ill-advised because I cast on a bunch of things that I feel like are better suited for colder weather, and then all of a sudden it's going to be hot. But one of the things is the Totally Rad Socks from Summer Lee Knits. I have basically half or whatever, 3/4 of the first sock done. It has been absolutely ages since I have knit a pair of socks. I really love the colors with these. I think it's so beautiful. And I really do like this sock pattern and I just need to get it done. So I have 2 works in progress that I don't think we're going to touch at all during this video. I have my Summer Sweater V-neck that I have cast on in a very beautiful like emerald green, and it's just not the season for it. I will pick that back up in like August or September or something when I feel the need for a dark green sweater, but that is not today. And I also have a shifty cowl on the needles. However, that is also again like quite heavy and wintry. I'm using a not like super woolly wool, but I'm using wool yarn for it. It is probably going to be gifted. So either way, that's going to be held off probably until September as well. But the last two whips for this video are my Farnham tee and my pressed flower shawl. I really want to be able to finish these soon, but they're both quite a lot of knitting, so we're gonna see how long this is gonna take me. And just for reference, today is April 5th, so we'll see how long this video takes me to make. But for my Farnham tee, I have this much done of the back panel, which is really not all that much. I need to get this side down to 7 inches. We've got quite a ways to go. I haven't started on the front panel at all yet. And then I'll need to connect the two of them together, knit the entire body, and knit the sleeves. So this is going to be a little bit of a doozy. And then my last work in progress is my pressed flower shawl. I have talked about this one before, and I really do enjoy the pattern, but I've kind of run out of steam on the color work. I have just been not in the mood at all to be doing color work. I don't know why. I do generally really enjoy doing color work, but it's just like not been something that I have been gravitating towards lately. I've been gravitating towards like very easy knits. So I would like to somehow inspire myself to get the color work mojo going so that I can finish this shawl. Because as you can see, as far as shawls go, we're nowhere close to being ready to just call it quits and say that it's big enough. It's definitely not big enough. So we gotta get a little bit of movement going on. But let's call today Sophie Shawl Day, get this little guy done, and I will check back in with you a little bit later. Hello, it is a new day. I have had a haircut and I have finished my little Sophie shawlette. So this thing is a mess. I cast this on because I wanted some really mindless knitting, and I have very much achieved that because I have, like you can see, the increases are going up on this side, and then I dropped my stitch marker, picked it up and put it in on the wrong side. So then I finished doing the increases on this side. And then as I was doing my decreases, I kept them on this side. And then right around here, things just got all out of whack with the like rate at which I was doing increases, but it's fine. It's nice and long. The idea that I had with this is that I wanted to be able to style it like Petite Knit does with her little one, where she wraps it around your neck all the way, like wrapped twice, instead of just like one wrap and tie. And I think it has turned out actually pretty cute. I think, so she ties it like this with just one little knot. And if you do the full tie, I think it looks a little bit not great. I don't think it's the cutest with the knot. So I do think you need to just do one little tie, and then it's actually kind of cute. So I am glad that I finished this. You can't tell that I messed up the increases and decreases when you're wearing it, which, like, of course you can't, but it is like, I don't know. It's not like I'm going to like rip out and redo the thing, but it is a little bit embarrassing to look at. Oh well. But I have also been making some progress on my Farnham sweater. I'm so close to casting on the front. So I'm almost done with the top back panel before your like armholes. And then you obviously need to do the front neckline, put that together, get that down to the armholes, and then we'll be working in the round and it'll go much, much faster. But that is all of the updating that I have for you today. I'm not actually going to wear this because it's starting to get warm as I have cut my hair off for summer, spring and summer. Next week is supposed to be in like the 80s. So we're looking forward to some warmer weather. I'm wearing my outline tee. I'm working, my office is in the basement, so it's a little bit chilly down here still. So I do need to wear just a cardigan that I have. This one is store-bought, but I have my outline tee on. This is knit in Pearl Soho's linen quill, and the shade is called turmeric. I really like this. I was like super on the fence when I first finished this because the fabric just felt really stiff at first, but over time, as I've worn it a few times, it has like kind of eased up and loosened up a little bit, which is good because it was quite a stiff, kind of awkward feeling fabric when it was first finished. So I'm glad that it has loosened up and is a lot more comfortable to wear. But I need to get to actual work now, and I will update you later. Hello from the future. So I have been working on this video for well over a month at this point, and I started putting it together and realized I didn't do a very good job of like recapping each project as I finished it. So I am going to be hopping in and out of this video with just like a little bit more information on each of my finished objects. So this is my little finished Sophie shawl. I knit it in Sheepy's stone washed yarn. All of that was such a tongue twister. And let's see, the color is Smoky Quartz. So this is a cotton and acrylic yarn, which is kind of weird, but I actually really like it. So it looks like to me it is a pretty much just a cotton core, and all of the gray fluff that you see is the acrylic. So basically it's like almost like a cotton based mohair, but the mohair is acrylic instead. And especially after it's been knit up, it really does look like you've held fingering weight yarn with a mohair. It's wild. So I'm gonna be honest, this is a little bit of a fail for me. I have never knit anything quite so slapdash, I guess. As far as like a mindless pattern goes, this is really satisfying. I'm like really having a garter stitch moment right now, and it goes on and off the needles really quickly. We're now at the point of spring where it's just like a little too warm to actually get that much wear out of this. However, I do think I will wear it maybe in the fall, you know, when it actually starts getting a little bit colder, where you want to look like you're cute with your little like fuzzy like necktie on. It's spring, even though I like theoretically it could be cold enough to like want a little scarf. I don't want the aesthetic of a little scarf in spring. Like I'm trying to like manifest better weather. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, April 11th, and I have some updates. This weekend, I took off Monday. So I took yesterday off to have the day off, and we did a lot of gardening, we did a lot of housework, but I also made a lot of progress on my Totally Rad socks. So this is one Kitchener stitch away from being done with the first sock. So that is very exciting. Although I am waffling on starting the second sock because it is like, it's been so nice. The weather has been so nice the last few days, but it's been really warm, like almost 80. And the idea of wearing like super long socks is just like such a hard no right now. So I know I really like this pattern. I really like the socks, but these are longer than I would normally knit anyway. And I'm in the mood to knit short socks now because it's like short sock season. But I am a like completist at my core. I will finish these socks, but I think what I might do is finish the toe and then pop this in the wash and block it right away before I start the second sock, because I'm just so unsure about the length of these socks. I don't know why, it's like really throwing me off. I feel like maybe if I see it blocked, I'll like it a little bit better. But besides my Totally Rad socks, I have made a good amount of progress on the start of my Farnham sweater. I got the upper back panel done to the armhole opening, and I got each side of the neckline done. So I finally have the whole front neck working in one piece. I'm going to be knitting that flat until it's the same length as the back panel, and then we will be working in the round. So I will be working on stockinette body island sooner than later. I think probably in the next couple of days, because it does take me a while to knit flat, and there's a lot of stitches. It's a quite oversized sweater. So I am looking forward to finally being able to try it on. The shoulder construction for the Farnham for the Farnham sweater is so good. Like, it is just so clever. I think it looks really nice, and I can't wait to actually be able to wear it. So I'm really like motivated to get that done. So fingers crossed, I will be working on stockinette in the round sooner than later, because that's when it's gonna like speed up. But I have just a couple of minutes before I need to get started for work today, so I'm going to do Kitchener stitch on these toes and get moving. But I will check back in when I have more to share with you. Okay, a little early morning Farnham Sweater try on. So you can see I just did this stripe on the front, so I still have this amount left to go until I connect under the sleeves to knit in the round, but I'm so excited about it. I think it's gonna be so cute. I think I'm gonna get so much wear out of this. Like, it's really very much my style. But man, I'm really glad that I sized down on this. So I think I chart in the pattern to be like a size 4. I am knitting a size 2. And I'm really glad about that because it's meant to be like very oversized. I think it's like 16 inches of positive ease, which is a lot. I picked a size that's about 10 inches of positive ease for a couple of reasons, mostly because I didn't want to have it quite that big. Second of all, I know that with cotton, it wears a little bit different, it stretches a little bit different, and I knew that it can like stretch out. So I didn't want to knit an oversized sweater and then have it turn out just like gargantuan for me. So even though I am knitting a size 2, which is a bit small for what I would normally wear, it is still going to be quite oversized. But I just think like the short rows on this are so clever, the way that they line up with these stripes. It's just so much thought was put into the shaping of this sweater. So I'm really excited to be like maybe a day away from knitting in the round at this point, which is very exciting. I have been working away on my Farnham sweater and I have gotten it like exactly to the waistband of a pair of high-waisted jeans. So I think the plan right now is I'm gonna knit 2 more stripes, 2 full stripes, and then try it back on, see how I feel. Not quite sure about the length of the ribbing, but I'm really excited about it. I feel like I'm going to get so much wear out of this, so I think the fit is going to be really nice. Hello, it has been a while. Hi, Jackie. Just jumped up on the table. Okay, it has been a while since I have checked in, but I finally have something finished to show you. I have completed and blocked both of my Totally Rad Ribbed Socks by Summer Lee. So I finished these on Friday night. Today is Monday the 24th, so I have a completed set of socks. I haven't finished a pair of socks in so long, let alone long socks. Normally on these sock blockers, I knit them probably to like here. So these are like a solid like 2 inches longer than I would normally knit a pair of socks, but I'm glad that I have them done. They look so much better after being blocked. I was really concerned after knitting my first sock. I just like didn't think that it was going to look good, but I am glad that I finished it. I would say that I have relearned I would say that I have relearned a sock knitting lesson in double checking the thickness of your various fingering weight yarns, because these two, the lighter pink and the darker pink, are much thicker. They're still fingering weight, right? But this white, I think, would really be classified as like a super fine, like a light fingering weight, as you can almost kind of see, like the toes especially are almost like a little bit see-through, and obviously knit at the same gauge, and you don't really want your toes and heels to be a thinner fabric because that's where they're going to wear first. However, they do have a lot of nylon in this sock blend. It is the Lion brand sock yarn. But either way, I think they turned out so cute. So I have made quite a few modifications with these socks. I followed the gist of the pattern, but I didn't really like follow the pattern, right? So I did a ribbed cuff and then a little bit of space. I did the 3 stripes because I thought that that looked the cutest. And then I did all around ribbing for the rest of the leg. And then I did ribbing across the entire foot. as well as a little bit of ribbing down the center of the foot because they're meant to be like kind of athletic looking socks. So added a little bit more ribbing around the center of the foot, around like the arch, because I think that just like gives more of the athletic vibe. Obviously, I did a traditional heel flap and gusset and then the contrast toe as well. But these are now in my to-done pile. I am working away on my Farnham sweater. I am almost to the body ribbing, and I know that I can sail through sleeves super quickly, so I'm definitely going to be finishing that soon. However, if you've been paying attention, following along, I have not touched my pressed flowers shawl at all. I just haven't knit on it. I don't know why, I'm just like really not feeling it right now, but I'm not gonna force it. Getting these off my needles, getting the Farnham sweater off my needles, that will start feeling like I'm accomplishing things and feeling like I'm finishing stuff. So that is my new revised goal, is to finish my Farnham sweater, and I will check in with you when I have a little bit more to share. Okay, so these are very well worn at this point because I finished them several weeks ago now, and I have been wearing them most days. I have been keeping these downstairs in my office to be like my office socks, you know how you have office socks, but I have been wearing them a lot when I'm not doing like a lot of walking around because they don't stay up very well. Now I put a video up on Instagram with some of my thoughts on this, and I'll put like clips of that here so you can literally see how it sits on my like leg and foot, so you know what I'm talking about. But it's been a long time since I have knit a full pair of socks, and I just kind of picked out these colors because I love them together. I mean, I still think that these are just gorgeous looking socks, but I didn't really think about how these yarns would impact the sizing of the sock. So this lighter pink yarn is just like a little bit heavy for a fingering weight. I have used it before on a pair of socks, and what I did was I sized down the needles, and I just didn't think about that while I was knitting these socks. So because the yarn is just that little bit thicker, and even though I knit the size of sock that I would normally wear, each stitch is just that tiny little bit bigger, and then when you multiply that against 64 stitches, the sock ends up just a little bit too big. Now I was thinking that I was going to be smart and like work my way around this by doing a ribbed cuff at the top so that there was something a little bit more grabby at the top, because I knew that this stockinette section right after the cuff of the sock wasn't going to have much to hold itself to the leg. Whereas like ribbing, like really, you know, it sucks in a little bit, it just like conforms to the leg and the foot a little bit better than the just plain stockinette does. But given that the sizing was just like a smidge too big, this stockinette pattern, this stockinette section just kind of falls down the leg. I thought like maybe this ribbing would be enough to kind of help hold it up, but really what it does is it creates a fold like right at the beginning of that ribbing where the stockinette just kind of slouches down over it. When I talked about this on Instagram, somebody mentioned like, oh, well maybe you could feed like elasticy, you know, like that elasticy thread through the cuff. And I just don't think that would be enough because it's so loosey-goosey in this stockinette section that I feel like I would need to like use the elastic thread through the whole section. I'm just not gonna do that. But these are like comfy sitting inside socks. They're just not going to be like boot socks for me. I really love the look of these socks and I would probably knit them again in the future, but what I would do is not knit the leg quite so long, and I wouldn't use quite as much spacing at the very top of the stockinette section. So that's a little bit more compacted as well. I think between that, using the right size yarn and needles will help this just fit a little bit better on my leg without having to like fuss around with doing leg shaping. Because you know, like the calf muscle is definitely bigger than your leg down by the ankle. So you could theoretically start off by casting on a larger number, decrease down as you get towards the ankle, and then increase out again for like the foot. But that seems like more effort I'm willing to put into a pair of socks, and I think what I'm going to continue to do is just knit the socks to the length that I typically do, which is like just below the calf muscle, and that way they don't have that issue of like trying to fit two different widths in such a short amount of space, which I think also contributes to the slouchiness. So just going back to like the yarn sizing for a minute, it's just so wild to me how no two like fingering weight yarns are exactly alike. And it's something that I should have known a little bit better when I was picking out these yarns, because I used the Lion brand sock yarn that I have had in my stash for years and years and years. It's just this white yarn here, and it is very thin for a fingering weight yarn. It's perfectly fine for socks because it's quite sturdy feeling. Like it is definitely a more like intended for sock use yarn. It's not one of those like super soft like merino sock yarns where you wear them once and then they're super pilly and look awful. These are definitely meant to be worn as sock yarn, but it's so thin that really I ought to like size my needles down if I'm ever using this Lion brand sock yarn, because it's just so thin. Like you can see my toes through the toes of the sock. But I am interested to see how the heel wears over time, because that's really the only area in a sock that I have that like wears down. But like I said, I have been wearing the absolute heck out of these things for the last however many weeks it's been since I finished them, and I am just glad to have a pair of cute and cozy little work socks. Okay, so today is Sunday, April 30th. I have just started, obviously, the first sleeve, and I got it as long as this last brown stripe on the body. So I think I'm probably gonna do, well, a few more stripes. I'm thinking a 3/4 length sleeve, so hitting like here-ish on this wrist, you know, there. I think I also might redo the neckline. I think it's just a little too loosey-goosey. I think I might pick up the same number of stitches and just start decreasing, because with the cotton, it's rolling a lot more, and it's a little too floppy. So I think that's kind of gonna have to be a must do to make this a little bit more wearable and chic, although I don't know, it doesn't look that bad. It looks not great with a t-shirt underneath, but little bit more to go on the sleeves, but we're making some progress. Now, obviously, I have finished my Farnham sweater. I am truly so obsessed with this sweater. It's a little bit annoying, actually. I have been wearing it most days since I finished it, which is a fashion choice for sure, but I mean, I work from home and nobody's gonna notice. So let's talk a little bit more about it. So going into it, I knew that I would have a lot of leftover of the white yarn because I bought the cone. I kind of thought, especially with cotton yarn, that the fewer ends to weave in, the better, and that is absolutely the case because weaving in ends on this was very tedious, but I have so much of this left over now. I feel like I need to knit like 3 tank tops, and I feel like I probably could with the amount of yarn I have left over. And I also have quite a bit of the brown yarn left over as well. So I'm interested to see what I might come up with to use the rest of this yarn, because I really, really like it. Like, this is just the most comfortable mid to light-ish weight sweater that I own, easily. Like, including store-bought sweaters, it's kind of perfect in my opinion. So for weaving in ends, because this is cotton yarn and it doesn't hold together as nicely as like a wool yarn, I knew going into it that I would want to leave much longer like threads to leave in than I would normally. And I'm really, really glad that I did, because I just feel like with cotton yarn especially, the more like turns you can make the weaving do as you're weaving in the ends, the more secure it's gonna be, because it doesn't want to like naturally stay secure. So you kind of have to put in more angles to like give it something to hold on to. I think actually my very first sweater was knit in 100% cotton yarn as well. And I remember like clearly as I got to the end of that sweater trying to weave in the ends and having it just like slip its way right back out. So I remember watching this pink knits, very pink knits video on weaving in the ends for cotton yarn, and I can link it down below. But essentially what she suggests is taking the plies and splitting the plies at least in half, and then weaving them in opposite directions so that it's not as easy for the whole thing to pull out. And I did do that a little bit in the finishing of the sweater. There's so many ends at the very beginning because there is a little bit of like stop and start, especially with the stripes, in order to do the shoulder patterning. So in order to get like this really nice shoulder detail, there is a little bit more cutting of the contrast color and I think of the main color to make it work. So at the beginning especially, I left like super long tails, like 5 or 6 inches or more, just so that I had room to work with, so that I'm not like struggling to like have a tiny little bit of tail and then use the needle to like push it through, which I definitely think helps a lot. But I did not do the splitting of the yarn and weaving in literally twice as many ends. I didn't do that for the whole thing. I did do it though at like more areas that have a little bit more wear. So like the cuffs, the bottom like ribbing, those are the areas where I would do that in. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned as I was going, but I did not cut my contrast color as I was doing the striping in the round. So whenever I could just hold the yarn up the back of the work, I did. And what I would do is just trap the yarn every like 3 or so rows. So I would try to trap, basically trapping the contrast color once, but more preferably twice in every white stripe in order to like hold that float in. And I think it worked really well. And I'm really glad that I ended up doing basically full length. I don't like when sweater sleeves go like past the wrist bone, especially for hand knit sweaters, because I feel like they get into like the whatever, like sink water when you're washing the dishes. They get in the way like while I'm working, if I'm writing, and I really don't want to like have my cuffs, especially on a hand knit sweater, like rubbing in ink or rubbing in pencil or something. It's just like more cleaning than I want to do. And also it's just like not as nice for the yarn. So I guess I would end up calling these sleeves like bracelet length. Like it goes right to my wrist bone, which is a very like functional and comfortable length for me. It also makes the sleeves like longer than the body, which is something that I was a little bit worried about because this is like a cropped sweater, and I do like that it's a cropped sweater, but I didn't want it to look like a shrunken sweater where it's too short in the body and too short in the sleeves. So I feel like this is an appropriate length for my sleeves. I did not do basically I did very few modifications to this pattern. I did do a little bit of waist shaping of just like tapering the body down as I was going, partially to combat the fact that I was loosening up. My gauge loosened up on the body quite a bit. So I did 2 decreases in every white stripe, and it barely tapers in. Like it does not taper in that much. So clearly my gauge was loosening up as I go, which is fine, but I still do have like a little bit of taper in the body. So for the bind off for the hems, I did not do the full like tubular bind off where you do those setup rows of the knitting and slipping every other stitch. I just went straight in and did the like invisible Italian cast off, which I prefer. I don't really like a tubular cast off. I don't like the like tube that it creates at the end of your work. I think the Italian bind off just like looks nicer, but that's just personal preference. And then the last thing that I changed was kind of due to the yarn, is I had knit the neckline as written the first go around, and it was very floppy. And I think that's just because like cotton yarn doesn't have the same like bounce back as wool, and it tends to loosen out over time. So when I had knit it the first time around with the same needles as the body, it was just too loose, and it didn't even like look like a little like mock neck. It just completely rolled all the way down from the top all the way to the bottom. So it just looked like a weird rolled tube neckline. So what I ended up doing is ripping it back, not all the way, like I didn't pick up all of the stitches again, but I ripped it back to below the first stripe, picked up the live stitches, and then gradually changed my needles to be much smaller. So I changed needles, I think 3 times, just like with my interchangeables and changing them out to a smaller size, so that I think it starts with a size 6 and I ended up at, I believe, a 4 for the end, to just tighten up the neck a little bit so it looks as it's intended to, instead of allowing it to roll all the way down and be all loosey-goosey. And I think that definitely helped like polish up the look a little bit. I love that this is a very like casual and relaxed sweater, but with like the roll neckline being like way down here, it just didn't look very nice. So I'm glad that I went back and redid the neckline. So after finishing the whole sweater, when I went to wash it, I can't even describe how shocked I was at how dirty the water was. It was gross. Like sometimes you kind of expect that with wool yarns, especially like with really woolly, oily yarn, like you know that it's going to like make the water change color. I was so surprised when washing cotton yarn with how much the color of the water changed. Unbelievable. This yarn doesn't smell at all. Like it doesn't smell like spinning oil. It doesn't smell like dirt or like the outdoors. It smells like nothing. So I really like wasn't expecting the yarn to have like anything in it. I thought that I would just like wash it in my little bucket with a little bit of soap and that it would be like grand. But what I ended up doing is I put the soap in the bucket, filled up the bucket with water, beautiful like white bubbles, put the sweater in and agitated it for like a second because it's cotton yarn, it's not gonna felt. And the water started turning brown immediately. And not like brown as if this was dye and the dye was leaking out, because first of all, it's not dyed. It was like a dirty brown. So what I ended up doing was I took it straight down to the washer and I put it on the hand wash cycle and washed it that way, because I knew that the washing machine is going to do a better job at agitating and washing it for longer than I would do with the sweater in a bucket. So I just put it on the hand wash setting and took it out. I didn't put it into the dryer because I know with cotton yarn, it's not that it's going to like dramatically shrink all that much. Like, you know, especially like from washing my swatch, I knew what to expect, but I didn't want to put it in the dryer and have it just end up looking too fuzzy and gross for its first wear. So I did lay it out flat to dry, and then I had to wait because I feel like people always say cotton yarn dries so fast. I have to disagree. I feel like cotton yarn can take forever to dry, but it finally finished drying. I blocked it, made sure, you know, the sleeves were the same length, all of that kind of stuff, and I am finally done. And like I said, I have been wearing this all the time. It is like perfect for the weather that we're having right now, where it's like still cool in the morning. I usually do have to change in the afternoon, especially if I'm going to be outside or anything, because it's getting up into like the 70s and 80s during the afternoons. But it is pretty much my like perfect spring, I'm sure early fall sweater, and I'm thrilled with the outcome. Now I know I mentioned at the beginning of the video my pressed flower shawl, and I have nothing to show you. I literally haven't touched it this entire time. I don't know what it is. I'm like really completely lost my mojo on that project. Like I cast that on maybe 3 months ago at this point, and as soon as I started like understanding how the pattern worked, I like lost interest in it. And I think it might just be from the mosaic knitting. I think I might just not like mosaic knitting, because you're knitting and slipping stitches and only working one color at a time. It feels like each row takes twice as long, and I think it like kind of technically does. Obviously, like there are motifs that you can only achieve through mosaic knitting, and I do love the look of the pressed flower shawl. I think it's beautiful, but I am also like curious if I could replicate it somewhat faithfully with just stranded color work. Obviously, I would need to modify the chart, but I think I could probably do it. However, I'm not gonna get into the weeds with that on this video. Now, I haven't shown any of it at all in this video, but I have been working on other projects as I have been working on all of these. So I will do another sit down standard podcast style video soon, but I do hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one.